On tonight's show, hear from the president of the University Senate, Dr. Andrew Utterback, on how professors are dealing with the adjustment to online classes, and how has the coronavirus impacted the admissions process for incoming students. We talk with the director of admissions, Chris Dorsey. All of this tonight on the April 30th edition of ETV News.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tyler Madden.
And I'm Julia Florence. Thank you so much for joining us.
Students, we're not the only ones that have had to adjust to this new schedule, as professors during the middle of the semester had to change their classes to an all-online format. So what has that process been like? I recently sat down with the president of the University Senate and the chair of the communication department, Dr. Andrew Utterback. Take a look. Dr. Utterback, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure, Tyler.
So what has it been like teaching the last few weeks?
Well, teaching online when you have not designed the course to be online, of course, we really only had about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days to convert in-person on-ground courses into some type of online experience. And so when you're given very, very little time, you go to your immediate go-to is to go to the basics, right? And so I think what some faculty did, and this is a perfectly reasonable way to approach it, is you go, okay, there used to be these things called correspondence courses where people would take classes through the mail. And so you simply go, well, I can always use the correspondence model and simply use email to send assignments and instructional materials to my students. And in some ways, that can be a very efficient way to do it, especially when you don't know what kinds of equipment, computer equipment, and connectivity that your students have access to. My understanding is, in fact, is that some students, were attempting to use cell phones to complete their academic work in the first week or so. Now, Eastern responded very quickly and bought a whole bunch of laptops, and they were able to distribute laptops to anyone who requested them. Now, I was lucky in the sense that I had recorded many of my lectures on YouTube about 4 years ago in association with the publication of the second edition of my textbook. And so those instructional videos were already on YouTube. And so all I really needed to do was to cue my students to those materials and then provide the supplementary materials by email. So, as a professor, we've all had to adapt in some ways. And I think what I'm seeing is that some of us are trying to keep things synchronous. In other words, we're meeting our classes at exactly the same time, Monday and Wednesday from 11 to 12:15. Some of us are pursuing more of an asynchronous style where we are giving assignments and the content for the week, like on Monday morning, and then checking back in at the end of the week with folks to see where they are and so forth. And I've sort of adopted both. I'm doing a little bit of both. Sometimes I'm meeting the class at 11 o'clock. And sometimes I'm just sending them assignments, which they can get into and complete sort of on their own time frame within a window.
The communication department has a lot of these hands-on courses having to make these adjustments. How are the students handling all of these adjustments through the middle of the semester?
Well, fundamentally, it changes the experience. And so you simply cannot recreate the experience in distance learning. You can provide a different experience that hopefully is of a similar quality, but it's not the same. It's not the same experience. So, I do know that, for example, in the audio production classes, that they have been able to provide access for the students to be able to access the software that they need to do audio editing. And so they've been, audio is a lot easier in some ways because of the bandwidth is not as high, the files are not as large, and it's easier to distribute the content to the students, have the students manipulate the content however you are expecting them to do so, and then send it back. Whereas when you're dealing with something like video, it's a bit harder. Students do have smartphones, but these aren't, a smartphone is not a full-size ENG camera and tripod and separate microphone, right? And so the video courses are somewhat more of a challenge. Although I do know that in TV2, the field video production class, that the professor has been able to distribute video clips to the students and have them do their editing and then send the clips back. And we're relying on what the students have available to them, which are the smartphones. And so you say, well, you don't have the big fancy camera, but let's see what you can do with your phone, with the camera that you do have.
We mentioned at the top of the interview that not only are you a professor at Eastern, but also the president of the University Senate. So how has the Senate been conducting meetings since Eastern shut down its campus, and what have you guys been talking about in those meetings?
So the University Senate is a group of folks that is a representative body of the administration, the faculty, counselors, coaches, athletic trainers, everyone, okay? But the way that it works is that you've got essentially a senator that represents a certain group, and the way it normally would happen, we would conduct meetings on campus in the science building on the first and third Tuesdays of the month. Now that happened to coincide right there with when we shut down Eastern, and then it was technically spring break and so forth. So knowing that I had to be able to reconvene the Senate, out of all the different choices that I had, I knew that I was going to have to do some sort of video conferencing with this. The university already had WebEx in place. I could have used WebEx. I could have used Microsoft Teams. That was already in place. But based on my very quick research, what I found was that Zoom really seemed to be the easiest software to use. Right at the very end of March, I'm trying to think, it was March, I want to say it was the 31st, I reconvened the Senate for the first time using Zoom. And it went pretty well. I mean, we set a lot of ground rules. I also had to be fairly careful with sending out the address, the meeting address, and that kind of thing, because at the same time we were starting to hear about Zoom bombing and so forth. And so I really limited the distribution of the Zoom meeting addresses and the passwords and so forth only to the senators. Normally the entire campus is invited, to participate in Senate meetings. But this time we had to sort of limit it.
So as president of the University Senate, you're involved in a lot of those important meetings. And with UConn announcing at the end of last week that they'll make a decision on the fall semester by June 30th, kind of two questions here. The first one is it still too early for Eastern to hear about Eastern's plan for the fall semester? And then kind of looking a few months ahead, what are the factors that are going into making the decision to reopen the campus in the fall or continue another different way forward?
So yeah, that's a really good question. It was just the other day, UConn made the announcement that they will be making a decision in June, no later than June 30th. So UConn has not yet made a decision. What they've conveyed is that they're going to make a decision by the end of June, but they don't know what that decision is going to be. Now, the UConn decision is connected to a Board of Trustees meeting in June. And so that's really my understanding is that's really why UConn is waiting until June, is because ultimately it's the trustees' decision to make in consultation, of course, with the campus. And so Eastern, as a part of the Connecticut State University system, we don't have the ability to make that decision ourselves, okay? So what will happen with that is that guidance will be provided from the governor's office. And that guidance will that guidance will be made in consultation with the system office. The system office will then come up with recommendations for the campuses. And again, that's all done in consultation. None of it happens in a vacuum. Now, I believe the next Board of Regents meeting for the CSUs is also in June. I believe it's in early June. So I imagine that our timeline for making a decision will be somewhat tied to that same timeline as UConn. But there's a lot of different ways things could go. Besides a normal reopening, there could be a soft reopening of some kind where there's a hybrid model. Some courses on ground, some courses online. You could also see an exact reverse of what just happened. So think about this, the first 7 weeks online, 7 or 8 weeks online, and then converting back to on ground. Although the timing of that would not be very good, because if you think about it, the beginning of flu season is right around October 1st. And so you wouldn't want to bring all these people back together again at a very high risk moment. So I think that, the decision is coming, and I think that they would rather make the decision sooner rather than later. But as of right now, it's important for me to say, no decision has been made. So all of us are awaiting the decision. But, as I've said to you earlier, some folks describe dormitories as cruise ships that don't float. And there's some truth to that. It would be irresponsible to reopen high-risk environments to the students until there are measures in place where the health safety of the community has been ensured. And so in my mind, and I'm sure other folks probably share this point of view, that things will not be returning to normal until we have a vaccination in place, in combination with a stronger toolbox of treatments for this particular virus. We're really, again, we're only 6 weeks. It's only been 6 weeks since we left campus. And so the next 6 weeks, we will continue to learn more. We will continue to learn more. And I think the biggest mistake that we could make is to make a hasty decision. No one wants to make an ill-informed decision or a hasty decision about this.
Well, Dr. Andrew Utterbeck, Chair of the Communication Department, President of the University Senate, and, if I might add, Faculty Advisor to ETV News, we appreciate you coming on the show today.
Well, Tyler, it's my pleasure. Really, thank you.
The 2020 commencement ceremony will look a lot different than years past, as Eastern announced last week that they will be hosting it virtually this year on May 19th. The event will still be hosted live at 6 p.m. that evening. Students are also encouraged to check their emails in order to confirm their address so that proper graduation materials can still be mailed out.
Julia, while most of us are at home practicing safe social distancing, there are a number of people deemed essential workers who are on the front lines fighting this coronavirus. And take a look at this. Firefighters, police officers, and paramedics gathered at Windham Hospital in a parade to show their appreciation for the work of the hospital staff charged with fighting the coronavirus.
Local restaurants are also showing their gratitude and have been delivering food for the staff members who are working around the clock at Windham Hospital, as they too want to express how much they appreciate the efforts of their workers. The Eastern community has also recognized this progress since leaving campus, especially in appreciating the success and perseverance of its students during these hard times. As a result, Student Affairs is gifting all Eastern students with a free t-shirt that says, "Together Well Apart." These t-shirts come in a variety of sizes and colors and will even be directly sent to homes at no cost at all. Students will have until Friday, May 15th to order them from the web link that got sent out and should have their Eastern email and ID ready for checkout. Although the stay home, stay safe policy is still in place, everyone is wondering what will come of the fall semester, especially for new first-year students.
Yeah, that's right, Julia. And recently I had the opportunity to sit down with the Director of Admissions at Eastern, Chris Dorsey. Take a look. So how has all of this impacted your office?
It's kind of flipped what we do completely. I mean, normally this is the time of year we're meeting with admitted student families. We have major events for incoming students. Those all had to be canceled. And then we're also out normally on the road recruiting next year's class. So this has been a kind of flipped everything we do on its head.
I was thinking the last few weeks would be prime time for tours on campus because all the students would normally be back, and a lot of times it's April break, April vacation for a lot of high school students. So how can students that want to see the campus, how can they do that?
Yeah, so we do have a virtual tour that they can take. It starts at the main entrance, and there's somebody that narrates it as you walk through campus. So you can walk in the buildings and kind of do it in order, or you can kind of just skip to any building you want to see. There are a couple of buildings that have 360 pictures in them. So basically you look around the whole room. And if you had a 3D, the VR glasses, you can actually put yourself in those rooms. That's a good place to start. We've also tried to create some virtual meeting places for students to meet, because a big part of deciding where you're going to go is meeting the people that are going to be go there as well, and help that adjustment. So we had a meeting with over 90 students a couple weeks ago with our current students to kind of connect, ask questions about the school, ask questions about, and then meet other students that are also admitted for the fall.
Getting to build those connections with those new students is important. Have you seen a change at all in enrollment from out-of-state students and international students as a result of all the stuff that's been transpiring over the last few weeks?
Yeah, we've seen a small decrease in out-of-state students that have committed so far. We don't know because we still have, normally the deadline would be in a couple of days, but now we pushed it out to May 15th, so it's hard to know exactly where we are with out-of-state students, but we have seen a small number. And we're also hearing from families that are a little more concerned about sending their students out of state. We do have a few students that are international students that are, trying to figure out if A, they're going to be allowed to come if we're on campus, and B, how that works, how that's going to work with their student visas.
One of the things you touched on there at the end is there any process, is the process changing at all? Any restrictions being added to students, international students that are coming to the United States to come to Eastern?
Not yet, but they usually, so they have to go get a student visa, which usually happens over the summer, 90 days before they roll at Eastern. So we don't know that they're going to have an easy process. They could get denied visas at a higher rate than normal. Other challenges is just getting to and from campus. I mean, there's international students now that didn't go home yet, and they're struggling to try to figure out how to get home because there's not a lot of flights from the U.S. going anywhere right now.
Another thing you just mentioned before was an early move Eastern made was pushing that deposit deadline for incoming first-year students until May 15th. So have there been any other adjustments? What other adjustments have been made for high school seniors during this time?
So the first thing we did, as soon as we were told we couldn't have visitors on campus, we started doing one-on-one meetings with families. So we created a website where they can go online and book an hour-long meeting with myself or any one of my staff. And we spend that hour going over the financial aid award, talking about their major, talking about the rest of the process, guiding them through the next step they need to normally take. Because again, this is the time of year where we'd have between 10 to 20 people every day on campus doing those meetings. So we've done them virtually. We created a virtual version of our admitted student day. So we had some faculty members do mock classes or program overviews. And then we had career services, student activities, and advising do sessions on how their offices help support students. So we've tried to create that. We've really pushed our social media. We have a Facebook page just for admitted students, and there's probably close to 500 students on there connecting, meeting each other. Because again, you mentioned earlier, making those connections are really important for students. So when they show up on day one, they feel comfortable because they know some people that are at Eastern or coming to Eastern.
The students already making those connections. What's your message to those students, the ones that are prospective students that are planning on coming to Eastern?
I think to try to make those connections as much as possible. Keep an eye out for what options they have that we're offering them. So we'll probably do another admitted student big meetup virtually, obviously, and then kind of keep an eye out for student activities. We'll do things like that to kind of build that, like those orientation type events that will have to be online to build those connections. And then connect on Facebook. Connect on social media. So we have Instagram and Facebook pages just for our admitted students. Parents can't join. They try it every day. We tell them no. And it has to be just for students that are admitted to Eastern and they connect. It's amazing where you'll see 4 students email saying, oh, we decided we want to live and meet together. And they're from all over different parts of the state. I'm like, how do you guys know each other? And they're, oh, we met on Facebook. So it is a nice place for them to meet and kind of connect. And it does seem like that avenue has more steam this year than it had in the past, where there are more students that are active there. Before, there's students who get on and maybe message once and twice. Now, every day, the people are messaging each other and making. They also make their own private Snapchat groups. So a student will say, I'm going to make a new Snapchat group for bio majors, and then give us your name, your Snapchat, and then they'll put them in the list, and they make those connections. So they're doing some of it themselves, and then things that we do for them.
Well, it seems like everybody has that, even the incoming students, these new innovations and new ways of doing things. Chris Dorsey, Director of Admissions at Eastern, thank you again for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
With everyone at home, we asked the ETV News crew to share any words of wisdom on how they're handling these uncertain times.
My advice to students would be to just write down all your homework, make a planner, put it on your wall or something so you can keep yourself focused on what you need to do.
Just remain positive. Know that this is not permanent. This is a temporary inconvenience. And stay close to your family and keep people in your prayers.
Find a routine that you're comfortable with, or stuff to help you better yourself, because now is a greater time more than ever to better yourself because we have all the time in the world. And I know Rosetta Stone has 3 months free for any student to use, so I know you can sign up for that. I'm personally trying to learn some Spanish, so we'll see what happens there. Not doing too well, but we'll see what happens.
Get outside as much as you can, especially as nice study breaks, and enjoy the nice weather because it's only going to get nicer from here.
To go outside every day if you can, just to get some fresh air so you don't feel like you're stuck in the house.
Keep up with your schoolwork. I understand it might be tough during these times, and just by working from home, I understand that it may be tough. So, but do your best to keep up with your schoolwork. I hope to see all of you soon, and I miss you all, and I wish you all the best of luck. We're all in this together.
My advice to students is to keep busy and set some goals to work towards.
Set a goal for yourself every single day, and to also not lose sight of your long-term goals. For me, it helps to write them down so I can visualize them and then check them off when I'm done.
Do as much schoolwork as you can and be productive with that, because at the end of the day, it's gonna pay off.
So just find a hobby that you can devote time to. Try and learn something new. Try and perfect or improve at something that you're passionate about.
Making sure they wake up as early as possible to get a head start to my day, doing little things like check my syllabus and my email, of course to stay in contact, but also on top of my schoolwork. And lastly, I personally plan my weeks ahead to make sure that I can do both what I need and want to do while I'm home.
Try to stay as physically active as you possibly can while also maintaining a proper social distance from people to protect not only yourself, but the others around you.
My advice to students is to get your work done early in the day so you can spend the rest of the day doing whatever you want.
Just do one thing productive each day.
It's just getting yourself out of bed in the morning. I know when I first got back, I was sort of in a vacation mode, so I was sleeping in and just not starting my day off right. So waking up, eating breakfast, and just starting off your morning routine makes everything a lot easier for yourself throughout the day.
Not letting your work build up so you get it done quickly, and making sure you're staying on top of stuff, and try to talk as much as you can virtually, because I feel like that'll help us all stay sane during this whole thing.
Start a daily routine and keep up with it.
I recommend students plan things ahead that they want to do so they have something to look forward to no matter how small it is.
And make a to-do list of at least 3 to 5 important things to help motivate you to get through the day.
Don't take the small things for granted that are around you. Walk outside, take in some good fresh air, but at the same time, still make sure you follow those social distancing rules.
Make a list of short-term goals and long-term goals that they want to accomplish and work on it a little bit every day.
Get dressed and get ready every single morning, as I think it jumpstarts your day.
Trying to be organized, making sure I stay on top of deadlines, and by communicating my concerns with my professors when I need help.
Doing say 50 push-ups a day, that's what I've been doing, or mixing it up, doing sit-ups or push-ups, just keeping yourself active, getting that blood flow, and making sure that you're just not staying in one place the entire day.
Well, that wraps up another edition of ETV News.
For everyone watching, thank you so much for making us a part of your day, and we hope you're able to tune in again next time.
As we'll be back with more interviews from members of the Eastern community.
Please remember that although we continue to keep our distance, we will always stand united as one. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you again next week. Good night.